Right now, in a locked-down estate in Bedminster, New Jersey, Donald Trump is telling the people closest to him something he will never say into a microphone. He is telling his own advisors in private that he knows the United States lost this war to Iran. Let that sit for a second. Not struggled, not faced setbacks, lost. That's not me saying it. That's the Wall Street Journal reporting this morning on conversations happening inside Trump's own inner circle. And once you understand what he's trying to do next, the whole picture gets even more damning. According to that same Wall Street Journal reporting, Trump now wants to manufacture a version of victory he can sell to the American public. And here's the move. He just wants Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. That's it. That's the finish line he's quietly moved the goalposts to. Denuclearization, the entire stated reason this war supposedly needed to happen in the first place, he doesn't even want to talk about anymore. It's gone. Quietly dropped, like it was never the point. But here's the problem for Trump. Iran isn't playing along. Iran has held completely firm on every condition it laid out in its memorandum of understanding before it will even consider reopening that strait. And when you hear the list, you'll understand why this isn't some minor sticking point Trump can wave away in a press conference. Israel has to leave Lebanon. Iran gets sanctions relief. Iran keeps its ballistic missile program, the very thing Jim Banks and every Trump surrogate on television this morning is claiming got wiped out. Iran gets a massive infusion of aid, and the United States has to leave the region entirely. In other words, Iran isn't accepting a face-saving exit for Trump. Iran is saying, if you want this strait open, you give us everything we asked for at the start. Not a watered-down version, not a photo-op ceasefire. Everything. So what does the man who supposedly wiped out Iran's ballistic missile program do with that information? He goes dark. Trump's schedule today is closed to the press, completely sealed off. The only images coming out of Bedminster are photos of him wandering the golf course alone, looking like a man waiting for a phone call he's dreading. And in the middle of all this, he's back online posting bizarre, unrelated images, this time targeting a private citizen named James Tallarico. No context, no explanation. Just strange, erratic behavior from a president who, according to his own people, already knows how this story ends. And it's not just Iran closing in on him, it's Israel too. Israel is now telling Trump directly, if you won't escalate against Iran, we will do it ourselves and we'll drag you into it whether you like it or not. Read that again. America's closest ally in this conflict is threatening to override the President of the United States and force his hand. At the exact same time, Netanyahu is blowing up another one of Trump's manufactured victories, this one over Gaza. 2 weeks ago, Trump stood up and announced a border of peace deal, claiming Hamas agreed, claiming Israel agreed, declaring the win before the ink was even close to dry. Netanyahu's response, let me be very clear, we don't agree to any of this. We don't want any deal at all. And just to make sure there was no ambiguity, Netanyahu added that he intends to remain prime minister and that there will never be a Palestinian state. Not now, not as part of any deal Trump is floating. Standing right next to Netanyahu when he said it, General Brad Cooper, who leads U.S. Central Command, a man who has spent the last several months being quietly humiliated on the world stage, present for yet another moment where the country he represents gets publicly overruled by the ally it's supposedly leading. And while all of that is happening, an entirely separate front is opening up, one most Americans haven't even heard about yet. The Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen have launched a new wave of attacks against Saudi interests, not just in Yemen, but inside Saudi Arabia itself. Ballistic missiles and drones slammed into Yemen's Al-Muqa port, setting off fires and sending thick black smoke into the sky. That happened less than 24 hours after Saudi Arabia announced a brand new defense pact with Turkey, stacked on top of the one it already has with Pakistan. People are already calling it the Mecca Pact. And exactly like I warned would happen the moment that pact was announced, the Houthis tested it immediately. They weren't scared of it. They went straight at it. Last night, an Aramco facility in eastern Saudi Arabia, the Jazan refinery, was hit hard and is still on fire as of this recording. The Houthis have already claimed responsibility, releasing a statement saying they successfully struck the Aramco refinery in that industrial region. So let's take stock. A war Trump privately admits is lost, an ally threatening to go around him, a peace deal publicly disowned by the other side, a new front opening in Yemen and Saudi Arabia, and what is Trump doing about any of it? He's sending his loyalists out to the morning shows to lie about it. Take MAGA Senator Jim Banks. This morning, he told a national television audience that Donald Trump is the greatest peacemaker in the last 4 decades, nearly 5 months into an active war with Iran. Listen to how he says it with a straight face. His legacy is going to be largely wrapped up in ensuring that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. I do not want my kids to grow up in a world where Iran has a nuclear weapon. President Trump is the first president in 47 years who's had the guts to stand up to the regime there. Watching what our military has accomplished, wiping out 85% of Iran's ballistic missiles, Iran's defense industrial base. 85% of Iran's ballistic missiles, he says. Meanwhile, Iran is explicitly demanding, in writing, as one of its non-negotiable conditions, that it keep its ballistic missile program intact. Those two things cannot both be true. Somebody in that equation is lying to you, and it isn't the country that just used missiles to set a Saudi refinery on fire. Then there's the economy. This is where it gets almost comedic if it weren't so consequential. Trump propagandist Maria Bartiromo went on air and declared that when Democrats say the economy isn't doing well, that's pure propaganda. Her words, "It's doing amazing. I talked to CEOs and the U.S. economy has never been better." Listen to this. That's just propaganda. I mean, look, things are going well. You've got job creation, you've got economic growth, you've got $18 trillion of new investment. I've spoken with a number of CEOs who tell me that business is up strongly. CEOs. She talked to CEOs. Of course, business feels great if you're only asking the people getting richer off layoffs while everyone else absorbs the cost. That's not an economic analysis. That's a focus group of the people least affected by the pain. And then, almost immediately after, Jim Banks, the same senator, pops back up and gives Trump's economy an outright A+ grade. Watch this exchange because the interviewer doesn't let it slide. Friday's jobs report, as you know, says the U.S. lost 23,000 jobs in July. Do you think President Trump deserves an A+ on the economy, Senator? I do, and here's why. Every single jobs report, except for this one, has exceeded expectations. Except for this one, read between the lines there. He is grading an A+ on an economy that just posted a net loss of 23,000 jobs, and his entire defense is every report except the one we're currently discussing was good. That's not an A+. That's grading on a curve so generous it isn't grading at all. But it's Trump's national economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, who takes the lying to a whole new level. He went on the morning shows and claimed there is currently zero inflation and that the economy is experiencing a massive boom. Here's the clip. First of all, if you look at the latest inflation numbers, right? The consumer price index was negative for the month of June, core was zero, and so all of the price data have been decelerating. Zero inflation. A massive boom. Set that claim aside for one moment because I want to bring you back to it after this, because when Hassett got a real follow-up question later in this same news cycle, the story changed dramatically. Before we go further, I want to be straight with you about where I get my information, because with this much conflicting spin coming out of the same administration in the same 24 hours, it matters more than ever. Every morning before I put a script like this together, I check Ground News. It's a subscriber-funded app that pulls in thousands of articles from across the political spectrum and shows you, side by side, how the left, the right, and the center are each covering the exact same story, with a factuality rating attached to every source. It's how I caught that the story about Trump privately wanting to end this war is actually being covered far more aggressively by right-wing outlets right now than by the left, which tells you a lot about who already knew and who's just catching up. If you want that same full picture instead of whatever algorithm is feeding you one slice of it, go to ground.news, and right now you can get 40% off their Vantage plan. Supporting them helps support independent reporting like this, too. Now back to Kevin Hassett, because zero inflation, massive boom doesn't hold up long once you start asking basic follow-up questions. While all of this economic theater plays out, an American MQ-9 Reaper drone was shot down or crashed over Djibouti, another piece of U.S. military hardware gone. And in a story that should be raising alarms far louder than it currently is, the Trump administration issued a 21-day ultimatum to every major U.S. defense company. Come up with a plan to massively increase weapons production within 3 weeks, or the government will consider taking control of the companies itself, potentially invoking the Defense Production Act. Think about what that means. An administration that can't win the war it started is now threatening to seize private industry to try to manufacture its way out of the hole it dug. This is what mismanagement looks like when it's dressed up as strength. Trump and his defense secretary are being outmaneuvered at nearly every turn by Iran, and the price of that failure is being passed down to defense workers, to taxpayers, and eventually to you. Even Israeli officials are starting to say the quiet part out loud. Israel's energy minister said this, "I think from our perspective, it would be better if there's no agreement. We can continue putting pressure on Iran. Another 2 or 3 years, with God's help, the regime in Iran will fall, Remember where this started? We made sure to sow all those seeds, just openly admitting on camera that they helped engineer the conditions for this catastrophic and unlawful war, in his own words, and that the plan was never really about a quick resolution. It was about years of grinding pressure, with the United States absorbing the cost and the casualties in the meantime for our... Now, remember Kevin Hassett's zero inflation, massive boom line? Here's what happened when Jake Tapper actually pushed back on it directly. The bottom line is that if you look at the overall economy, then things are really, really booming. As an example, there are 83,000 construction workers building factories right now. Initial claims for unemployment insurance are the lowest they've been since World War II. And when it didn't come out strong, we sort of dug in and we saw two things that made it negative. One of them was a reduction in government workers, mostly teachers at the state level, taking July off. And the other thing was that FIFA ended, so we had a whole bunch of hospitality workers file for unemployment. Teachers taking summer break and hospitality workers coming off a soccer tournament. That is the official White House explanation for a negative jobs report delivered by the man who, minutes earlier, called it a massive boom with zero inflation. You don't get to have it both ways. Either the economy is booming and every number backs it up, or you need to explain away the bad numbers with excuses about teachers' summer vacation. Pick one. And then there's the part of this story that has nothing to do with the economy or the war and everything to do with how far some of these people are willing to go. Senator Tim Scott was asked directly by Manu Raju on CNN why his campaign's attack ads insist on using the full name Abdul Rahman Mohammed El Sayed instead of the name the candidate actually goes by, Abdul El Sayed. Raju asked him point blank if this was a coded way of signaling to voters that the candidate is Muslim. Listen to how Scott dodges it. Not at all. What we're only saying to voters is a simple thing. He says he's the most dangerous candidate you can find. He's right. We should trust his words, not ours. But why not just use his name, Abdul El Sayed, which he goes by? Well, listen. I go by Timothy Eugene, and so I get called that all the time. Timothy Eugene. As if that's a comparable situation to deliberately spelling out someone's full Arabic name in a political attack ad. Nobody buys that answer, and Raju didn't let it go easily either. Meanwhile, on Face the Nation, Senator Cassidy of Louisiana, who ultimately voted to confirm Todd Blanche, tried to have it both ways too, essentially asking for credit for almost voting no. In his own words, this is not a black or white decision. No American should be targeted by the law, but no American should be above the law. And that, frankly, almost weighed to vote no. Almost. He almost did the right thing. That's the standard now. Praise for getting close to a principled stand and then abandoning it anyway. And through all of this, Trump was busy posting online, comparing photos of himself and Melania against photos of Abdul El Sayed and his wife, implying there are two types of Americas. It's worth remembering exactly who is making that comparison. A man who has bragged on tape about sexually assaulting women, who cheated on his own wife with an adult film actress he said reminded him of his own daughter, and who was introduced into certain social circles by a man who has bragged about being connected to Jeffrey Epstein. Abdul El Sayed didn't take the bait with anger. He responded plainly, I want them to live in an America where they can breathe clean air and drink clean water. And actually, Sarah and I like each other. I don't know about the First Lady and the President, but from what I've heard, it's a bit of a rocky road. No shouting, no mudslinging back, just a quiet, pointed contrast, and honestly, it lands harder than anything Trump posted all night. So here's where we are. A president who privately admits defeat while publicly chasing a symbolic win. An ally threatening to go around him. A peace deal disowned by the other party before the celebration even ended. A new front opening in Saudi Arabia. Surrogates contradicting each other on national television within the same news cycle. One claiming the missile program is destroyed while the country that owns it says it isn't going anywhere. One claiming the economy has never been better while another quietly explains away a negative jobs report with excuses about teachers' summer break. None of this is happening in isolation. Every piece connects to the next, and every piece gets minimized, spun, or buried by the people responsible for it, until someone puts it all in front of you in one place, back to back, so the pattern is impossible to miss. That's what we do here at States Report. If today's breakdown helped you see something you weren't getting from the morning shows, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this with someone who needs to see the full picture too. We'll be back tomorrow with whatever comes next. And knowing this administration, it won't take long.